Now, we cannot talk about this past weekend in football without talking about the absolute melee at Old Trafford between Fulham and Manchester United in the FA Cup. And more importantly, Fulham's season and what a complete roller coaster of emotions it has become. Fulham is having a great year. They're sitting ninth in the Premier League table. This is a club that many thought would be fighting relegation, as they have every time they've been promoted over the past few years. They've been on the yo-yo back and forth, but they're having a great season. Alexander Mitrovic is their striker. He's finally figured out how to score in the Premier League despite having some trouble the past few times up. Got a couple of great American players on the back line. It's really been a great story. And then they come out last game against Brentford and just look terrible, and a chance to really almost get themselves into European contention. So that was a really disappointing game. And then they come to Old Trafford in a game where you sort of figured that Manchester United was going to run away with this, even though Fulham's been very good. You figured maybe not run away with it, but this was Manchester United's game to lose here, and they were. Mitrovic scored in the first half. Fulham was dominating this game till halfway through the second half, and then all hell broke loose. You had a handball right in front of goal by Willian. He gets a red card. Before he even gets a red card, Fulham's manager, Marco Silva, goes ballistic, gets tossed before the official can even check it on VAR. And then, of course, it is confirmed that it's a red card. And it was the right call. It was definitely a handball, definitely prevented a goal, so it's a red card. This is not really controversial. But his response was so over the top, he gets tossed immediately. And then Alexander Mitrovic, who is a hothead ready to burst at any time anyway, bumps the official, actually shoulders him out of the way, gets up in his chest afterwards, so he really hit him twice or connected with him twice. I mean, automatic red card. He's going to be out for a while. It was an absolute disaster. And you got to look back at the manager. When the manager overreacts like this, it really allows the player to do it as well. And they interviewed him after the game. He said, no, Mitrovic didn't even see my response. Doesn't matter. You're a hothead. You're always a hothead. You're a miserable fuck, right? So your player gets to be a miserable fuck too, and he gets to pop off and he gets to do these things. Mitrovic is that same kind of guy, but he doesn't have any restraint because the manager sets the tone. And that's going to be a common theme you hear me talk about a lot. These managers have to manage people, not just tactics, and that's what happens. So 3 red cards in a matter of a minute. From there, Manchester United hits the penalty. They score 2 minutes later, and it was a disaster from there for Fulham, and they're out of the FA Cup. But what a season they're having. Good, bad, ugly, up, down, left, right. It's been entertaining to watch as a neutral. But their season is an absolute roller coaster, and now they're going to be without probably their top goal scorer probably for a while. He may be done for the season after the suspension gets handed down. So it'll be really interesting to see how they do moving forward for the rest of the Premier League season. Ultimately, it probably doesn't matter a whole lot because they weren't going to get up into a European spot, and they're safe from relegation. They're not going to get relegated. So really, they're going to end up somewhere in that middle, and if they're anywhere between 8th and 16th, it doesn't really matter, and that's where they're going to end up. So it probably doesn't have any effect, but it's going to be interesting to see how they do, and they have been a really interesting team to this point. They might have just gotten a lot less interesting, but boy, Sunday's FA Cup match was really something to watch. It was almost like watching a traffic wreck. You couldn't take your eyes off it, and that's sort of how they've been lately.